A month after a London-bound Air India Boeing Dreamliner plane crashed just outside the Ahmedabad airport in Western India's Gujarat, a preliminary probe report is out, but the findings have left more questions than answers. While the 15-page report does not arrive at a conclusion, the focus is on the fuel control switches to the engines. They were moved from the run to the cutoff position moments before impact, according to the preliminary report. After the switches flipped, the Boeing 7878 Dreamliner immediately began to lose thrust and sink. This cutoff transition could be the key piece in a complicated puzzle of what happened on flight AI-171 on that tragic day. Fuel switches regulate flow into planes' engines. They are in two modes, run and cutoff. Flipping to cutoff almost immediately cuts fuel to the engines. It is most often used to turn engines off once a plane has arrived at its airport gate and in certain emergency situations such as the engine fire. The report does not indicate if there was any emergency requiring an engine cutoff. The switches are spring-loaded to remain in position. To change one from run to cutoff, a pilot has to first pull the switch up and then move it from run to cutoff or vice versa. According to the probe report, just 3 seconds after liftoff, when the aircraft reached the maximum recorded airspeed of 180 knots, Engine 1 and Engine 2 fuel switches transitioned from run to cutoff position one after another with a gap of just 1 second. The other big clue is brief but critical exchange between the two pilots during the engine failure sequence. In the cockpit voice recording, one pilot was heard asking, "Why did you cut off the fuel?" To which the other replied, "I did not." The exchange took place moments after both engine fuel cutoff switches transitioned from run to cutoff. The report does not indicate which pilot asked the question and who gave the answer. The two pilots at the control of flight AI-171 were Captain Sumit Sabharwal and First Officer Clive Kundar. 56-year-old Captain Sabharwal was a highly experienced pilot with over 15,600 flying hours, including more than 8,500 on the Boeing 787. 32-year-old Officer Kundar had accumulated over 3,400 flying hours and had been with Air India since 2017. Moments after the exchange, switches of both engines were transitioned back to run from cutoff, indicating that the pilots tried to salvage the situation. The flight data shows that an automatic relight was attempted. Engine 1 responded briefly, but Engine 2 did not recover despite multiple attempts to reintroduce fuel. This failure ultimately made it impossible for the aircraft to maintain thrust. The ram air turbine, or RAT, which is an emergency power source deployed in response to engine failure, was activated right after takeoff. One of the pilots then issued a mayday call, but when the air traffic controller tried to confirm the call signal, there was no response from the plane. The aircraft quickly lost altitude and crashed into a medical college hostel just outside the boundary wall of the airport. The jet, loaded with fuel, exploded upon impact, killing all but one of the 242 people on board and another 19 on the ground. It was an unimaginable tragedy that unfolded in all of 32 seconds. A special airworthiness information bulletin issued by the US Federal Aviation Administration had warned of a fuel control locking switch malfunction in the Boeing 787 aircraft. Based on reports from operators, the FAA warned that the fuel control switches were installed with the locking feature disengaged. But Air India decided not to carry out the recommended inspection, claiming it was advised and not mandatory. In the 1980s, a Delta airline pilot mistakenly cut off fuel to the engines of Boeing 767 he was flying, but in that case he was able to restart them because the aircraft was higher in the sky, avoiding disaster. If the pilot did not flip the fuel switch, then who or what did? So far, there's no indication of any sabotage linked to the crash. The preliminary investigation did not assign blame on the aircraft's manufacturer, Boeing. The final report is expected to be out on June 12, 2026. For now, the root cause of the world's deadliest aviation accident in a decade that claimed 260 lives remains unclear.